Welcome. In front of me I have the relatively brand new Xiaomi 13, and today I'll go over unboxing along with the overview of this specific phone. Now the reason I did say relatively is because this device was originally released in December of last year on the Chinese market, and it just now decided to be, I guess, released on the global market. So that's why we have it right now. Anyway, I'll just pop it straight open. I do really like this peel tabs. Anyway, let's just rip that apart. There we go. We do have a case, so that's really nice to see. Now this is just paperwork, so I'm gonna toss it to the side. Then we get our phone. Then in typical Xiaomi fashion, we actually get a charger and a cable. So there's our cable, and there we go, there's our charger. 67 watts, as you can obviously see right here. So pretty darn good charger in the box. Just move that to the side. Now right here is our device. We have a couple information about it right on the front right here. So we have Leica preference, whatever lenses. This is just a collaboration about the cameras. I don't think it will affect the actual camera quality all that much, as it never kind of did in any other devices. We have a brand new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. So this is the newest Snapdragon at the very highest end. 120 Hz refresh rate. Adaptive sync AMOLED display. Now it's curious that they did say adaptive sync to probably try to mislead a little bit, because we don't really have like the variable refresh rates on this device, or nothing that should go below 60. Then we got 67 watts wired turbo charging, so like the charger would imply, and it's about all the info that we have right here. So just pop it open. Should have probably wasted that time and turn on the device in the meantime. Ooh, that's kind of cold. It just arrived, so it is still like chilly from being outside. There we go, it's turning on. Now I have to say right off the bat, the design right here looks so good. It looks super premium, clean, modern. I do really like the actual design right here. It just looks so good. Now, once the device turns on, as you can see, we have our display. Unfortunately, we don't have any kind of under display cameras, which is a little bit of a shame. So we do have a hole punched camera, unfortunately, in here, in this display. Now, the display right here is a 6.36 inch display, 1080p by 2400 resolution. It's an AMOLED display, 120 Hz refresh rate, Dolby Vision certification, HDR10 Plus, and peak brightness of about 1200 nits. Though apparently it's advertised to be at 1900 nits, which would be quite insane. Way higher than I think any device is, though Apple might be at 2000, if I remember correctly. But still, no matter, 1200 is still bright enough for outdoor usage without any problems, so it should be good enough. The protective layer right here, or the type of glass right here that we have, as a Gorilla Glass 5. And we're looking at 89.4% screen to body ratio. So the bezels right here are pretty small. They actually seem smaller than the percentage would imply, to be honest. But the phone nonetheless looks pretty clean and modern with these super tiny bezels. And we have also 414 pixels per inch. So it's a relatively small display for modern time. And the resolution is still at 1080p, so that's why we have this relatively high pixel count right here per inch, which is a good thing. Now, if we flip it over, we have our camera setup. So we have a 50 megapixel wide sensor, it's a f1.8. Then we have a 10 megapixel telephoto, f2.0, and then 12 megapixel ultra wide with f2.2. And at the front, we have a selfie, and that is a 32 megapixel wide sensor f2.0 as well. Now with the back cameras, I can shoot at 8K, which is, well, kind of insane, at 24 frames with HDR. Then we have 4K, 24, 30, and 60, as you would probably expect. Then obviously we have a 1080p, 30, 60, 120, 240, and 960. Though the higher, like triple-digit numbers, are slow motion. Apart from maybe, I haven't tested it out, but maybe the 120 is just a typical recording, which would be pretty interesting. Now, moving on. One thing that is actually interesting here, we do have water and dust resistance, IP, I believe it was 68, if I can find it on the spec sheet in any reasonable time. Let me just kind of search for it. Yep, IP68, so water and dust resistant, up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. So again, you can basically take a shower with the device and be pretty good if you drop it in a pool. Depending on how deep the pool is, hopefully it will survive. Obviously 1.5 meters is not that much in terms of depth. So kiddie pool should be no problem, but a better, like, deeper swimming pool, past the 1.5 mark, if I guess the phone probably sinks all the way to the bottom and any kind of damage happens to the device, the warranty might not apply to it. So just keep that in mind. Now, moving on to additional specs right here. We have several versions of storage. The one that I have right here will probably be the lowest end. Yep. So it's 8 gigs with 256 storage. So actually not the lowest one. The lowest is 128 gigs of storage with 8 gigs of RAM. Then is the one that I have, 256 with 8 gigs. Then I have 256 with 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage with 12 gigs of RAM. Now, interestingly enough, we have also 2 different types of storage that you can pick right here, depending on which option of the device you go for. So we have the old school good storage of UFS 3.1 if you go for the lowest end, the 128 gigs. But if you bump it up to 256 and anything higher, you get UFS 4.0, which is going to be just a faster read and write storage, allowing you to, for instance, deal with that 8K footage a little bit quicker than the 128 gig version of this device would be dealing with. So it's quite interesting. I've seen this already with a couple devices where they decided to just have 2 different storage types for their flagship devices. And it might seem a little bit misleading if you don't really look at the spec sheet, because technically the 128 in terms of like dealing with footage will be slower, and this has nothing to do with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor. This just has to do with the type of storage and how quickly you can read and write data onto it. So you're not getting the same kind of value for depending on like which storage type you pick. Obviously you will be paying more or less depending if you go for higher or lower amount of storage, but it's also, now you have to look at the type of storage that you're getting in the device. Now, last thing is the battery size right here. We have a 4500 mAh battery, which I would say is a pretty okay size for such a size of the device. Obviously, it's a relatively small phone, so a 4,500 milliamps seems to be adequate for such a size. Obviously, it would be really nice to have a bigger battery, but this one will be good enough. And obviously, we do have a fast charging, so even though this might not be like super big battery cell in here, we can still top it up pretty quickly, comfortably. So advertised charging speeds right here, we will do 100% in 38 minutes with this charger. So obviously, 30 minutes to get you from dead to fully charged is really good. And even if you forget to charge your phone and it's nearly dead, you can pop it in to plug it in and charge it for like 10 minutes and have more than enough battery to get you through the day. So even though the battery here might not be the biggest, it's still okay size, I would say. But the charging speed right here more than makes up for that. So you should be good to go, no problem. So there we go. Those basically are all the worth mentioning specs. Now, just to quickly also give you the price tag right here, we're looking at about €1,000 for this device. So it is obviously priced in at a, well, flagship price. And this is the middle version of it. So there is the 13 Lite, 13, which this is, and then we have also 13 Pro. And obviously all these devices will have little differences between them. Obviously Pro will be more expensive while Lite will be cheaper. And to just kind of go over pros and cons right here that I just consider right here. In terms of build quality, I think it's a Pro, though obviously that might not be the case for everybody as what people consider. The back is, I believe, ceramic, at least it looks like it. It says it's glass. It has a ceramic appearance, most certainly, so I'm just gonna point that out. It is glass nonetheless, fairly slippery, so it will slide off of your surfaces. That might be a con to some people, so keep that in mind. But luckily we do have, as a typical Xiaomi fashion, a case included for the device. So with the case, the device shouldn't really be sliding all that much. Now, the display right here, pretty small bezels, really nice, high density, though it's lacking that lower refresh rate with the LTPO tech, which would mean that when it's running at the 120 Hz refresh rate, it will never drop anywhere below 60 Hz, which other modern devices like Samsung's abuse that to basically get better battery life. When the display is running, well, when you're doing something, it's running at 140 or 20 Hz, but when you stop doing things and you have stable image, stationary, that doesn't move whatsoever like this one, it will drop sometimes to like even 1 frame. That really depends on my phone. Here, it's gonna drop to 60, which, like I said, in terms of battery like preservation, this is not the best. So that is something to keep in mind. Which, nice refresh rate, lacking in the LTPO. Now, moving on, storages right here. If you go for the lowest one, I would say for a flagship device, you kind of might be getting a little bit scammed right here with the UFS 3.1. It's an older tech, so it's kind of like getting buying a new flagship and getting a last gen processor, even though someone that paid little more gets the newer gen processor. I know that this isn't necessarily the same, but just trying to give you kind of like a comparison. You're basically getting slower speeds of your device just because you have a smaller size of your storage, which, like I said, might feel a little bit scammy, especially to people that don't really look at such a things. And I honestly don't have much to say about this device, negative or positive, all that much. It's only based on the spec sheet. So other than that, the device on the paper seems to be really nice. It's really nice that we have charger and cable, but this is kind of a standard for most of the Chinese brands. The quality of this, or kind of how this device feels and looks, feels really premium. Also looks really premium, and there isn't very many things I can pinpoint right here that might be just off about it right now, just because I haven't used it at all. So yeah, I only have a gripe right here with maybe the, like I said, the display where it's lacking in those slower refresh rates, but that is really trying to like nitpick things. Anyway, with this being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.